Good evening, EXJW community. This is the Oracle coming in for another edition of my video log as an ex-Jehovah Witness. Thank you guys for tuning in to my channel. I really appreciate all of the comments that I get. Today, I actually had the house to myself, which is a rarity these days, especially during the holiday season. It seems like we're always going to a dinner party or an event. So I thought I would take some time to enjoy some time to myself. I'm washing clothes, but I said let me rest and discuss something that's kind of been on my mind. One of the things that I appreciate about my life now is that my mate and my blended family, no one is in the Jehovah Witness religion or has left the Jehovah Witness religion. So it's kind of fun in a way to explain to him and my honorary children what it means to have been raised as a Jehovah Witness. I think they really appreciated the Leah Remy special because it reiterated some of the things that I had always expressed, and hearing it from so many different people really meant a lot. But one of the things that, I'm always talking about, not just with my mate, but with my friends and things like that, is the hierarchy and the labeling and the unspoken codes and the unspoken levels of people in the Jehovah Witness religion. And I wondered if that actually translated over to the EXJW community. And so my topic today is the hierarchy and labels in the Jehovah Witness religion, and asking the question, does it translate into the EXJW community? And the catalyst, literally, for me even doing this video was I love listening to EXJW videos when I have a moment to myself. And I came across a video where I think it was a young lady that I really like, and I'm really bad at butchering people's names, and I don't want to say the wrong name, but when the person started their vlog, they were discussing third generation or fourth generation Jehovah Witnesses, and I think this person actually was converted with her mother. So when she was first not a Jehovah Witness, and then her mother got baptized when she was, I think, I can't remember, but this person had commented on listening to other people discuss being a third generation or second generation, and it made me introspective about myself, because I know that when I open up my introduction, I always try to say a few things for people, especially if they're new to my video. I talk about the reason why you don't see my face, and it has nothing to do with, being afraid of being labeled an apostate by my family, and it has everything to do with my profession and my career and all of that, and having a high profile profession where, having my face would not be conducive to what I do. And then I try to sort of explain my perspective. And when I do talk about being a third generation Jehovah Witness, I do it not because I feel like I'm mentioning anything that has to do with the hierarchy. I'm talking about, this is the environment that I come from. I'm not someone who my parents decided to study when I was 6 years old, and I remember celebrating Christmas and celebrating Thanksgiving and birthdays, or you can look through my family album and see a Christmas tree. No, this is where my parents never had those things, And my grandparents got converted when they were fairly young, and they were both from the South. So when I say it, it's not because I'm trying to say I'm better or that there's more value in what I'm talking about than someone who was converted, even if they were converted when they were 15 or when they were an adult and they were in there for 10 years. I'm not, placing a value on that experience. But it did make me think about the value system in the Jehovah Witness religion. And it did make me think about the hierarchy in the Jehovah Witness religion. And it did make me think about, when I look at EXJW videos, how we attach certain things to our narratives. How do we explain who we are? And are we saying that, well, I was a Bethelite, or I was a pioneer, or my father was a presiding overseer, my father was an elder, or are we saying those things as a value? Because in the Jehovah Witness religion, there is a value attached to those things. And having grown up in it and having seen my family, seen how people behave when they have certain affiliations, it made me sort of have a philosophical moment of, I'm just going to have this vlog today, and I'm just going to throw it out to the EXJW community. Are we validating our narratives and our experiences based on where we were in the hierarchy in the Jehovah Witness religion? So, for example, I never was a pioneer. Never. I really literally didn't like going door to door. And, I got out of it when I was 17 years old. So is my experience as a female, third generation, any less valid than, say, a male that was a Bethelite and an elder and a presiding overseer? I think they're going to have much more information and much more experience and knowledge about the inner workings of the actual organization. I certainly did not know some of the things that I learned after getting out. And again, I think kind of going back to the Scientology, Leah Remini dialogue that she did, with her video series or her television series, is talking about the rank and file members versus the people that are at the headquarters. And that is so true. That was one of the first times that I realized that there is a hierarchy in the Jehovah Witness religion. There are people that are rank and file that go to the congregations, and a lot of them have absolutely no idea what is going on in Bethel. So the hierarchy is not so much a value. It's just that if you're not a male and you're not an elder and you're not a ministerial servant and you haven't been brought in to the inner workings of the organization, there's a lot of things that you're just not going to be aware of. But that doesn't mean that your experiences and your narrative is any less valuable. I think we all have a different perspective, and I think those perspectives are what enlightened us and what woke us up. So I'm going to have a different perspective, and I think that it's, in the time that I've talked to people that have been in the EXJW community, when I talk about my experiences, and they didn't even realize what someone who is African American, Afro-Hispanic, someone who has been involved in different congregations and someone who has, you know, lived in different environments, they're not going to have that knowledge because they're in a different place. So when they hear what it's like to be a female, what it's like to be someone of an ethnic group that for a long time in this particular organization was not valued, and I haven't had a chance to talk about how how racism actually started in the Jehovah's Witness religion. But I think I mentioned it under a few videos, because I remember my grandfather, who was a presiding overseer, I want to talk about that in a second, when he sat me down and told me he had some secret knowledge that that elders were given, and that we, people that were of African ancestry were cursed. And I looked at my grandfather like it was absolutely insane. And he showed me this Bible scripture, and I looked at it and I read it, and I was like, there's no reference to color in this actual scripture. And when you talk about, what a skin color looks like when it's sick, it's actually whitened or sickly or pale. So I don't understand how you have taken that scripture and used that as saying that this is talking about very brown skinned people. But that was what my grandfather was taught when he first became a Jehovah's Witness, and that was sort of the perspective that they were taught. So you can understand what that does to a person's mindset when you are indirectly told that you are from a cursed inferior group. So I think a lot of times people that are not in that group may not understand the overcompensation that goes on. And I saw it, having gone to many different diverse, congregations. I went to all African American congregations. I've gone to all Afro Hispanic congregations. I've gone to diverse congregations. I've gone to all white congregations. In the hierarchy, there's a racial component. There's of course the component of being an elder, being a presiding overseer, being a pioneer. Those are and people like really, puff their chest out when when they're in these groups. So, I'm gonna talk a little bit about my grandfather. For those that have not seen the video where I exposed my grandfather as being a pedophile and engaging in incest that resulted in a child that he had with his sister, who was a hermaphrodite. That was like the most shocking thing. My aunt and my mother went to the grave with it. She never told me. My aunt told me. And I think what shocked me more than anything is the fact that this was kept a family secret. And the funny part, or I don't want to say funny, but just ironic part, is that my aunts who knew this, I actually have an aunt that actually subscribes to my channel, and I find it hilarious because the funny part is that they're upset that most people don't know who I am. I do have a distinctive voice, so people in my family or people that may know a little bit about my family, they're going to hear this video and they're going to instantly know who I am. And I want to be very clear that I do not care at all, one iota. But I find it interesting that with what they actually knew about my grandfather, and they hid from the family, they were holding on to the fact that he was a presiding overseer and using that as a way to sort of checkmate and make themselves feel superior to other Jehovah Witnesses in the Kingdom Hall. Like my father was presiding overseer. No, actually, your father was a functionally illiterate man who slept with his daughters and raped them and slept with his sister. So how you can walk around acting like you're better than anyone in the Kingdom Hall, you should be ashamed of yourself for not acknowledging the damage that this man has done to generations of his family. There's a lot of damage that has happened in my family. My mother was, completely mentally ill. She had so many psychological and emotional issues, and no one can convince me that her being sexually abused by her father before she was violently abused and cheated on by my father didn't mess with her mind. But there's not a lot of compassion for that. And that's literally one of the reasons that I started doing my videos, is because I can talk about it very, very specifically. I can talk about the damage that people in this organization holding on to ranking and not seeing individual people. Like, are you kidding me? You're absolutely no better than anyone else. And holding on to rankings is a bad habit. It goes on in the Kingdom Hall. I'm not in any delusion that me making this video is going to stop. But I've seen the irony, of people that walk around and think, well, I'm a pioneer. My husband is a presiding overseer. So, we're of a higher ranking than, you just come to the Kingdom Hall and maybe you do your 15 hours. It's like, is that Christ-like? All these organizational requirements and things, that really is not what is taught in the Bible if that's what you follow. You should be, treating everyone with their own perspective and what they do with respect, regardless. And when I look at in the EXJW community, kind of getting back to, what I was talking about, do we respect each other? Do we categorize each other? Are we putting, a validation of someone's experiences based on, were you converted? Because that's another one. And I freely admit that, because I never did it consciously. I never was like, I'm better than someone because, I was born in, that's one of the things that we say. But I can honestly say that I do remember that there was a different sort of assessment, if you will, the way that I looked at people if they were newly converted or they were converted versus people that were born in. I do remember having that. So how does that translate when I'm listening to someone's video and they talk a little bit about who they are and they talk a little bit about their perspective, and then they say, well, I was baptized when I was 18, versus me listening to someone who says, well, I was born in. My parents were also born in. Do I place a value on their comments or commentary? And I actually don't. I know that I don't, because I learn from every different experience, every different perspective. Just it helps me. It's helping me to understand more about this organization and how it's affected so many different types of people. I love listening to people that have different backgrounds, different ethnicities, different regions, not just the United States, but how the Jehovah Witness religion is slightly different in the United Kingdom, or, it's slightly different in South America or different places, how their they're the same, but they're a little bit different because the cultural behaviors come into it. And I learned from that because part of me is a social scientist, and I love learning from people that don't see the world the same way that I do or have a different perspective. But I just wanted to, have a conversation with the XJW community and, just say, how many viewpoints, how many behaviors that we have. And, when we were in the Jehovah Witness religion, do we take with us when we are in the XJW community, and do we classify and rank ourselves differently based on that? So again, just more of a conversation with the organization. I'd love to hear from you guys. Tell me what you think. Leave a comment below. I look forward to dialoguing with you guys again. Have a great weekend, and I will talk to you soon.